Hello, it's Belinda. Today I am here to share my first project for the Cut to You design team for the month of August. I'm going to be using this really pretty floral pendant cut file, which I have cut quite large. It's going to be the background or the standout feature of my layout. You can see here that I have cut it out twice from just some plain white smooth cardstock, and that is to back and layer up against, I have also cut it out, you probably can't see it here, from this distressed pink and grey wood grain patterned paper, which is from a Kaisercraft paper pad. So the paper is fairly thin, and I wanted my cut file to have a little bit of dimension and to be a little bit thicker and more stable. So that's why I'm going to layer up these two pieces behind it before I back it. This month I am working on layouts for my wedding album, and that was completely inspired by the gorgeous cut files that were released for Cut to You this month. So that really gave me some inspiration and some motivation to work on these layouts. I am going to be scrapping these photos of my bridesmaids and I as we were getting ready before the wedding in our matching robes. And I have pulled some products from a couple of different Kaisercraft collections from my stash of wedding supplies, and I'm going to use those to create this layout. So with that, let's hop on fast forward and bring everything together. Okay, so off camera, I'm just showing you here, I have laid up those cut files, and I have also backed them with papers from the 6x6 paper pad that is the Kaisercraft Everlasting collection. And I've also created a double mat on against the white background for my page and added some stitching around the edge. One quick tip that I found when I was layering up these cut files, because it is such a large cut file, trying to layer the whole piece in one go, it just wasn't working. The glue was drying and I was trying to work too quickly. So I cut the background layers into smaller pieces, which just made it easier to work with. And of course you don't see that because it's sitting behind that front pattern paper layer. And on camera here, you've just seen me lay the cut file down onto the white background and just lightly trace around the inside of that with a pencil. And that's so I know where to put my mixed media. I'm only popping some mixed media down at the top of the page. I'm going to leave the bottom half of the page just plain white. And I'm using these Lindy's Stamp Gang Magicals. Now, this product is still pretty new to me, and I am still really underestimating the amount of pigment that comes out in those little pots. So my colors going onto the page, and once they've dried, they're a little bit darker than I had intended. I was hoping for something a little softer. And I did make a little boo-boo there. I must have put the wrong lids onto the pots after I had made these little palettes of watercolor with the powder, because I tried to make a little bit more of the dusty rose color and I ended up putting the other powder in there, if that makes sense. And it looked wrong, but I thought I was going to just pop it on the page and see what it looked like on the page. And then once I put it down onto the page, I knew it was definitely very wrong. So I quickly figured out what I had done, and now I am just mixing up a little bit more and making sure I've got the lids on the right ones this time. And there's that darker dusty rose color that I was looking for. So I'm going in, I'm pushing the color onto the paper with my brush, and then I'm coming in with just a little piece of packaging to spread that around a little bit more. This is more of the technique that I think I like. I don't like just using the packaging technique on its own. It turns out a little bit too messy for me. I like to have a little more control, but the packaging technique gives more of an organic looking edge to the mixed media. Now, as I said, these do come out a lot darker than I had intended. So even after I've dabbed up some of the color, I decide that I want to tone it down a bit. So I've just grabbed my pot of white gesso, and I'm going to use a wide paintbrush to paint a fairly thick layer of white gesso over the top. And that's another little tip from me. If you do have some mixed media that doesn't quite turn out the way that you want it to, and I apologize for my beanie head in front of the camera there. Just grab your white gesso if you have some, and by popping that over the top, it really tones it down. So once I'm finished this and I grab my heat tool and I run the heat tool over the top for a little bit, it has really softened up that mixed media background a lot, and I'm much, much happier with it. And there's my heat tool there. Okay, so now that's done and that's dry, I'm going to get ready to adhere my cut file onto my background. I'm going to use some wet adhesive, of course, because I have gesso and mixed media. I forgot to mention that. I did gesso my page before doing the mixed media. So I have got gesso and mixed media on that page, which means it's going to need a good strong wet adhesive to stick it down. And I'm popping it down just very lightly and then using my T-square ruler to make sure that that center piece is nice and straight and that it is centered to the page. I'm going to figure out where I want to place my photos. I know that I want to have them slightly on an angle, and what I decide is to have the landscape photo running straight across the page and then the portrait orientation photo at a little bit of an angle. Then I've picked two different alphas to spell out my title here, and one of them, the sticky backing fell off one of the chipboard pieces. So I'm spelling out the title, My Beautiful Ladies. I have these pink, really soft, pretty pink alphas, which I believe are from Feed Your Craft. And that's spelling out the words My Beautiful. And then Ladies is a chipboard thicker that's it's a wood look. And that's just something that I've had in my stash. So I'm going to pop the title down. The first part of the title is going to run along the bottom edge of this photo, as you can see. And then I have intended on putting the word ladies, nestling that in straight underneath. But what I found when I adhered it down was that because it was running between the pieces of the cut file and the white of the background, so you can see it there if I lay it down. Once I had adhered it down, which I think you're going to see me do that on camera, it kind of got a little bit lost. So I think the variation in papers with that white background, the title just, to my eye, it was getting a little bit lost there. So I end up pulling these alphas off, something that I'm finding myself doing a lot lately. Once I had glued them down, I ended up pulling them off, and I decided that I wanted to fill that space underneath the photo with something a little bit more solid. So this piece here has come from the 6x6 paper pad. It was a full 6x6 sheet that had lace on either edge. So I've just fussy cut that out. And then I've got this little piece here, which is from, I believe, from the sticker sheet. And I'm going to layer those two up and then tuck it underneath that photo, underneath where I have the words My Beautiful. I'm going to use a little bit of wet adhesive there to stick that down and pulling it up because I have got some tissue paper layers behind my photo. And that gives a more solid and consistent background for the title. That now part of it does still get a little bit lost against this similar coloured lace pattern paper that's underneath, but I think having it as one solid piece just helps it to stand out a little bit more clearly. And I've also gone ahead off camera and layered my journaling, or added my journaling, which is in strips, and tucked that underneath. But then again, I noticed there was just a little bit of awkward white space there, and that's just the difference in the pendants, the different sizes of the pendants. So I realized that once I'd done this, a lot of the cut file did end up getting covered up, but that's okay. I wanted this to have lots of beautiful layers, and I think having that cut file there really does contribute to that. So although you can't see the entire cut file in the finished product, it is there, and it does add some really subtle layers, which I think definitely contribute to the overall look of the final layout. So as I said, I've added the journaling, and then I have tucked another green lace border piece underneath to fill that bit of awkward, well, what felt to me like awkward white space. And now I'm going to come in and I'm going to create lots of beautiful floral layers around my photos. I wasn't quite sure to begin with if I was just going to create 2 layers on either side, but I really loved these white rose floral stickers which came from the sticker book from the Kaisercraft Two Souls collection. And I wanted to really I wanted to make sure that the darker green of the foliage on those was repeated in a couple of different places. So I create 3 clusters, one to the left hand side, one to the right hand side of my photo, and one just in that space between the 2 photos at the top. And in essence, what I feel like I'm doing here when I'm adding all of these layers is I'm turning my photo and title into one really big cluster in the middle of the page. And I really like that. I think it's a really nice design for a layout. I've also got these little doilies which I used a scallop die. These were on again on the 6x6 paper pad from the Kaisercraft Everlasting collection. And I used a scallop die to cut them out. And then I am just cutting them in half and layering them up. And what you may notice me doing as I'm layering up all these pieces is I've got 2 different sets of foam dots out. One is a slightly lower profile foam dot and the other is a lot higher. And I'm just adding some foam dots to the outside of some of those pieces as I'm layering them up. And that's just to give all my little layers and all my little clusters a lot of dimension, and it definitely helps the overall look to have them sitting at different levels. And by only adding it to the outside of the pieces, it prevents it from the layout becoming too bulky. Because this is going to be in a wedding album and there's going to be lots and lots of pages that I want to fit in, I want to make sure that nothing that I do is really too bulky, because I want to be able to fit in all of my stories that I want to tell. And I don't want my pages to warp while they're sitting in there. So keeping everything nice and compact is important to me. I did add another little layer down on the bottom of that photo, and that was again just to fill in what to me felt like a little bit of empty space at the bottom of that photo. So I've got these clusters now hugging all around the outside of my photos. And in the end, I think it looks really, really pretty. I'm really happy with it. And then to finish off this layout, I'm going to grab a few bottles of Nuvo drops. I've got 2 of the crystal drops and 2 of the jewel drops in colours that complement the colours that I've used in my layout. And I'm going to scatter those around the page, filling in some of the spaces around that cut file, and also drawing the eye's attention to the journaling down the bottom. So I've only got 3 there, but I did end up grabbing out a 4th colour, and I'm just making sure to vary the sizes and to vary the placement of the colours around the page, just to make sure that everything is nice and balanced. And that will be it to finish off my page. Of course, I have some close-up photos coming at the end of this video, and there is a link in my profile below to this beautiful cut file in the Cut to Use shop if you are interested in purchasing that for yourself. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.